Ideally, unless you've taken any leave for maternity, any gaps more than 3 months need to be explained why you have taken those gaps. All that paperwork you should collect before you finish medical school, because if you try and get that retrospectively, it becomes very, very hard.
But there's a lot of confusion about straightforward after graduation or straightforward if you've done your degree from some other country, going to the UK and starting with the foundation year one.
I sat in, and I think still this year, you have to sit something called a situational judgment test. It was that you had to earn above £28,000 a year to be able to get a visa.
Is there any other way other than PLAB 1 and PLAB 2 to get a GMC license and start working as a doctor in the NHS?
Unfortunately, if you haven't sat an internship and you don't hold a full license in any country, you can't sit the Royal College exam. But if you've sat the Royal College exams and things like that, sometimes you may feel you're a bit too overqualified for the position.
For that, how safe as you are as a doctor?
Yep.
That is very, very important.
Be very safe.
Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. In this video we have a very, very special guest with us, Dr. Fatima. She's a doctor working in the UK. She's currently training to become a gynecologist in the UK. So today she's with us to answer a lot of questions that you guys had. So she's going to clarify a lot of details of the PLAB 1 and PLAB 2 exam and how to get the GMC license. Different pathways basically to get the GMC license. And we're going to ask several other questions, interesting questions from her as well. Before we start, I want her to kindly introduce herself.
Thank you, Adhish, for having me. My name is Dr. Fatima, as Adhish told you. I am currently an SD1 in obstetrics and gynecology in the UK, and I also went through the foundation program, which is the FY1 and FY2 years.
Okay. Thank you so much for the kind introduction. So diving straight into the topic, I would want you to tell us about your PLAB 1 and PLAB 2 journey. How did you become the doctor in the UK?
So firstly, I would like to say that it's important before we even reach the PLAB 1, PLAB 2 to have your IELTS clear, especially if you're planning to apply for a foundation year 1, because you require a 7.5 in each of the categories and a 7.5 overall minimum before you can apply. I sat PLAB 1 in November 2019, a few months after graduating medical school. I spent about 2 to 3 months preparing for it while working a part-time job, and I sat PLAB 2 March 2020, just before the COVID wave hit.
Tell us a little bit more about then how much time it took for you to get a job in the UK, and after clearing, first of all the license, of course, and after you got the license, how much time it took for you to get the job in the UK?
So I had applied for the foundation program before I graduated university. So before you graduate, you have to submit all your paperwork around July, August. So you need to get all of that signed by the dean of your medical school. So I'd already applied for the foundation program, and so I had a conditional offer depending on passing PLAB 1 and PLAB 2 before the start date, which is in July. But in general, the verification, so you need to make sure you get your EPIC verification as soon as possible after graduation, because that will be the one thing that hinders it. If you have graduated from a country where English is not the spoken language, make sure you get an official translator and apostille copies, which you will need for the registration. They won't let you apply for your GMC registration till you've sat both parts. And once you've sat both parts, you can then apply for your registration. Now, the registration depends on whether you hold a license in another country or not. So for me, I didn't hold a license in any other country because I wasn't practicing anywhere else. So for me, it was a bit straightforward. So I had a form to fill which asked what I did after med school. So in my case, I was preparing for the PLAB 1 and PLAB 2. So you can write that down as what you were doing in the time. Ideally, unless you've taken any leave for maternity, any gaps more than 3 months need to be explained why you have taken those gaps. If you don't give an explanation for them or what you were doing during that time, you will be asked for an explanation once you've got your medical school degree. After you filled up the questionnaire, there'll be supporting documents that you need to give, which will be in regards to your degree, in regards to the clinical rotations you have taken during the last 2 or 3 years on the degree, depends whether you did a 5-year degree or a 6-year degree. All that paperwork you should collect before you finish medical school, because if you try and get that retrospectively, it becomes very, very hard. So when you're getting your graduation degrees and things, make sure you get all the paperwork with regards to your rotations, how many hours you did in each speciality, a good standing certificate, a letter of recommendation from your dean, or a no objection certificate. Everything should be written and should be on headed paper, the university headed paper, and signed by the Dean of Medicine. So make sure you have all of that, because all that paperwork has to be attached while you apply for your registration as well.
As you talked about that, you got the verification from Epic done before you sat the PLAB 2 exam. Well, it was a little different for me. I had started my verification for the Epic after my PLAB 2 exam. So it is taking me extraordinarily long time to now get the license. So it is very, very important for somebody who has cleared the PLAB 1 exam and who's looking forward to giving the PLAB 2 exam in the very near future. So as soon as you can get the Epic verification done, it is going to be good for you to get the license faster. This is a very, very important point to you. And also one more important thing, the pathways that we took to get to the GMC license were a little bit different. So I started working in India. I cleared my licensing exam in India, and then I sat for my internship. I did my internship, and then after that I started with the PLAB journey. Well, it was a little different for you. You started your PLAB journey straightforwardly and then started with the FY1 program. So a lot of people understand the internship pathway, that you get to your country, clear the licensing exam, or maybe if you graduated from your country, you start your internship and everything. But there's a lot of confusion about straightforward after graduation, or straightforward if you've done your degree from some other country, going to the UK and starting with the foundation year 1. So dive in a little bit about on to the what would be the process to the getting straight to the UK. For somebody who is not a citizen in the UK, maybe a visa could be an issue for them. So just clarify on that part, please. Thank you.
So, unlike Adhish, I have British citizenship, so I didn't have to worry about the visa aspect and earning enough for it. However, with the new rules, even with anybody can apply to a foundation program as long as you've not started your internship. If you've started your internship and done your internship, it automatically disqualifies you from sitting as a FY1 or doing an FY1 program, because you're deemed overqualified to sit that program. So if somebody is thinking about starting as FY1, do not start an internship, is my first advice. Second bit is in regards to anybody can now sit the foundation year 1 program. What I will say is look into the paperwork, because it's been changing year to year. When I sat in, and I think still this year, you have to sit something called a situational judgment test, which usually takes place in about November, December, before the year you're going to apply. So let's say if I was going to start August 2023 or July 2023, I would have had to start the situational judgment test in November 2022. So currently, the visa thing isn't an issue at the moment. Obviously, I didn't have to go through that pathway because I have a British passport. But anybody who's graduated, as long as you've not done an internship, can apply for a foundation program. And as long as they've got a place, the deanery will sponsor their cost certificate for it.
That's a very important point, because I remember because I also wanted to go directly to the UK, not do my internship from India, not get the license in India. But when I was applying in 2019, there was some visa issues. I could not get the visa because I would not have they would not have paid me enough money to hold a working visa in the UK. So tell us something about that situation right now, because I've heard that situation has changed now, and it is become easier for somebody to apply a visa and start their F1 program in the UK.
Yes, Adish, that's correct. So it has changed, because initially it was that you had to earn above £28,000 a year to be able to get a visa, which a foundation one on their basic salary alone does not make. However, because it's now put into a sort of special area where, because there is such a shortage of doctors, there is no minimum salary required, and as of FY1 you can still get a sponsored visa.
How much time would it take me to get a job?
In regards to jobs, as you said, once you've passed SJTs, they will give you a conditional offer depending on whether you've passed PLAB 2, and then you can rank you can apply. So your application can go from preference of areas, then to preference of jobs, and depending on your ranking, you'll get a certain assignment of certain jobs somewhere.
If you have more time, I'll make a video on SGT as well. So that a lot of people have confusion about this topic, so we can clarify this topic for them. Now we've talked a little bit about the foundation year one, how to get directly into foundation year one. But what advice would you give as somebody who is a medical student right now? What he should start doing, or he or she should start doing from the medical school itself, in order to make sure that they get they stand better while giving the PLAB 1, PLAB 2 exam. I know the examinations are going to change. Now UKMLI is coming, and the exam will be different. But of course, the gist of the whole thing would be similar, right? And the exam will be different for everyone. So, what things they should do from the medical school itself to make sure that they're in better position when they're going to sit this exam?
So currently in your application, your ranking in med school plays a role. So if you rank in the top 10% of your med school, you will be given a certain allocated points for that. Any research papers that you do, so the research paper must have a PubMed ID. As long as that, you get points for that. If you've got any other degrees, you get points for that. Whether you have a MSc, a BSc, or a PhD, they will also give you additional points, making up 50% of the marks.
So a lot of things that you should keep, the basic things you should keep in mind is that you should, study well in the med school itself, get a good rank in the med school. Also try to do some research, get some papers published. It's going to be helpful for you to get a job as well. So all these things in mind. But for somebody who has just graduated, right? So what do you recommend? Would it be easier for someone to directly get into the FY1 program, or some people should follow a pathway like myself? So, for example, I came back to India. I gave my licensing exam, worked here. I've been working here for the last 2 to 3 years, and then I sat on PLAB 1, PLAB 2 exam. So I think I know medicine a lot more than I would, of course, know after I've graduated from medical school. So I believe it would make things a little bit easier for me to go in the UK, make me a little more confident to practice. Of course, the systems are very, very different, right? The things work quite differently over there. So what do you recommend? Person should go fresh into the program itself, so that they have better understanding how the NHS works, or somebody should take their time, learn things in the country, learn procedures in the country, and then get to the UK?
So I might be coming from a place of bias since I sat the FY1, but as starting from a position Adhish will, which will be as an SHO, you're expected to know how to do things, and you're expected to know how to manage unwell patients. As an FY1, you will still have to manage patients and unwell, but nobody expects you to know how to do things, and you are heavily supervised, and there's always somebody you can ask for help, and you're not not critical, but nobody's going to be like, oh, how do you not know that? Because they expect you're straight out of med school not to know anything. So I would say starting as an FY1 would be easier for that account. But also one more thing is, having worked in different countries, you become set in their ways. And when you've come out of med school, you don't have any preconceived notions of how things are. So you're more malleable to how things should be. So you will adjust in the system easier that way.
Also, a lot of people have confusion about this topic as well. That is there any other way other than PLAB 1 and PLAB 2 to get a GMC license and start working as a doctor in the NHS?
Yes, there is. So the other way to start working would be to do the Royal College exam. So let's say if you were want to go into medicine, and you sat the MRCP and you qualified, so you've done part 1, part 2, and the practical part, which is PACES. So you've got a full college registration. That surpasses PLAB 2, so then you can apply for a full registration based on that as well. And that applies in other areas as well.
I think a lot of people will be confused about this thing, that they think about the Royal College exam as a specialization exams. So generally people have a notion that we have to be in a specialty program back in our country to give these exams and then go to the UK. Just tell us, can somebody who's just completed his MBBS can go give these exams and then directly go to the UK, and how difficult this pathway is as compared to the PLAB pathway?
So unfortunately, if you haven't sat an internship and you don't hold a full license in any country, you can't sit the Royal College exams. So when you start as an FY1, you hold something called a provisional license for the first year. And once you finish the first year, then you get a full license. So unfortunately, unless you have a full license in your country and you've completed an internship, you can't sit on any of the Royal College exams because you'd be deemed ineligible.
Okay. And a little bit more about the difficulty of this exam. How much more, if it is, how much more difficult it is from the PLAB exam? And if, for example, somebody wants to get the easy way to the GMC license, what pathway they should choose? Should they, go to Royal College exam straight? And what rank would they be placed? For example, I've cleared my Royal College exams, and now I've gotten GMC license from that pathway. As compared to, for example, I've done my internship from my country, and then I've got my PLAB 2 done, and then I've got a GMC license. What position would I be working then?
So obviously having Royal College exams will set you above par. They are more difficult, definitely, than sitting the PLAB 1 and PLAB 2. You would obviously be eligible for better job options. You can potentially start at a registrar post if you wanted to, having been Royal College qualified. However, I probably wouldn't suggest you do that in the first place.
Okay, so it's going to be much more responsibility for you, and also the exams are going to be difficult. So, if in short, if somebody wants to get to the UK and want to get the easier way to get to UK, the PLAB is the pathway that they should follow. Also, I've heard this thing that for example, I have done my specialization from India. Now, what value does that specialization hold in the UK?
So the specialization itself, unfortunately, doesn't hold any ranking. Having said that, if you've done Royal College exams, that will count. Something that does count a lot in the UK is your clinical experience. So if you've got a lot of clinical experience, they will take that into account when they make job offers. But if you've sat the Royal College exams and things like that, sometimes you may feel you're a bit too overqualified for the position, which you probably will be, but it's better to be a little overqualified.
Okay, so on this point of specialization, I will dive into another video. Uh, of course, and I think this video has clarified quite a few things for us. Basically, what I wanted to get out of this video was different ways to get the GMC license, and basically telling about your experience of the PLAB 1 and PLAB 2 exams. So just tell us a little bit more about your experience of giving the PLAB 1 and PLAB 2 exam. I talk extensively on this channel about my experience. So what I try to do is that I don't try to tell people like exactly how the exam goes, but tell my experience of when I gave the exam and how I prepared for the exam. What was I going through? So tell us a little bit in short that how was it for you to give these exams?
So obviously I've sat it before Adhish has, so Adhish's experience is definitely more fresh than mine because he's been through the process recently. Back in 2019, so I did most of my preparation from Plabbable. I found that very, very helpful. Main thing I would suggest is the comment section in Plabbable. Those hold some really gold points. So I used that, I summarized them in a book, and I went through them notes, go through past medicine as well, just to get a new flavoring. You don't have to do like 10 hours a day for PLAB 1. It's not something I'd recommend. Would you agree?
Yeah.
It's a few hours every single day, consistent, because I was holding a job, and I think Adish was holding a job as well when he sat the PLAB 1, so it's definitely doable. Just about being consistent.
I made a video on this topic, how to clear the PLAB 1 in just 15 days. So I think you just summed that point up quite well. So if you want to see that video, there's the link to that video will be in the description box.
In regards to PLAB 2, I will say that there are a lot of training courses out there, different ones. So you've got to find one that style agrees with you. I'd say do your research first of all. Secondly, I would say it is a difficult exam, PLAB 2, mainly because a lot of people find the communication aspect very difficult. People know the medicine. You know how to treat these things. You will just find the communication aspect really difficult. What I found while interacting with foreign graduates, and I'm sure Adish can agree on this, is they don't say enough please and not enough thank you. You have to excessively use these words because they are used in the English culture a lot. So in that aspect, I found it a bit easier because having grown up there, it came to me a bit more naturally. But I would say it's your mannerisms that you need to work on more than anything else. The medicine you probably know. Would you agree?
Yeah, like for medicine, they've already taken the PLAB 1 exam, and I think they have pretty much checked how much you know the medicine in that exam itself. So definitely, they're going to you have to be accurate medically to in the PLAB exam. But then above all those things, they are looking for that how safe as you are as a doctor.
Yep.
That is very very
You have to
important.
be very safe.
Yeah, and second point is that how well your how well and how comfortable your patient feels in front of you, because sometimes there could be scenarios or situations in your real practice if you're working as a doctor in the UK as well, that patients might not be comfortable in front of you because of you do not know how to open up the patient itself. So you have to learn all these things and you have to show all these skills in the exam, which is I think the exam is more like what would you naturally do in a normal situation. So that's it, I think.
Just to add, it's as Adhish said, it's about patient safety. You don't necessarily have to know a diagnosis and the management, because in real life you're not going to know the diagnosis and management for everything. It's about knowing your limitations. It's about being a safe doctor, and it's knowing when to escalate. If you don't know something, say, look, I'm not sure. I need to go and discuss it with my senior colleagues, as you would in real life. Just because it's an exam, don't just say, this is what I would do, this, because you wouldn't do that with a real patient. So as long as you put the patient first and put patient safety above everything else, you should be fine in the exam.
And moreover, be confident. Okay, you're a doctor. You are like trained to be a doctor. You've trained 5 or 6 years of your life. You've spent to be a doctor, and just be confident in the exam, and you will be fine in the exam. So thank you so much, Fatima, for like telling us a lot of things. So I think a lot of people would be now clear on a lot of different aspects of first of all giving the PLAB exam itself, and then after they've given the PLAB exam, how should they pursue forward to the FY1 first, FY2 first, and different pathways other than we've discussed other than PLAB exam that they can take forward. So that was it for this video. We will come back with a few more videos with Dr. Fatima and tell us more stuff about the different intricacies of working in the UK maybe, or doing the specialization program in the UK. So we'll be back with another video. Till then, it's a bye. Goodbye.
Also, if you have any questions, put them down in the comments and Adish will ask them to me for his next video. So please do comment if you have any questions.
Yeah, please do that. And also you can, if you have any questions, you can send directly those questions to me over to the Instagram. The link to that will also be in the description box below. So don't feel reluctant to just DM me directly. And if I can directly answer them, I'll answer them directly. If I have some doubts about some things, I'll ask the expert, of course, and then get back to you as soon as I can. So thank you so much for watching this videos. Until next time, goodbye.